The Business Innovation Zone, also known as the BIZ, is the place to start for entrepreneurs in Iowa. The BIZ helps entrepreneurs and startup companies focus on idea development, business models, strategy, market validation, mentoring, and networking. We also help clients connect with qualified community and state resources needed to grow their business. Throughout the year, we provide a number of networking opportunities with experienced entrepreneurs and business leaders by offering monthly luncheons and all-day seminars on marketing and finance. You can learn more about the BIZ at bizci.org.
Drew and I go way back. Drew was one of the first people that ever helped the BIZ get going when I got here. In fact, I think Susan Ramsey pointed me towards Drew, interestingly enough. Susan's with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. And was one of the first people that ever helped me with the BIZ. It's been a tremendous asset, does the marketing for the BIZ. And I, for fun, was Googling him this morning. By the way, as a marketer, you always want to figure out, okay, how high up do they come on Google when they put their name in? It's pretty cool because he's number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He had like the first 25 slots.
Much to the dismay of Drew McLellan, who wrote Dreamweaver.
Yes. Yeah, the other Drew McLellan really doesn't like it. But one of the hits was his Wikipedia page, which he claims he has nothing to do with. And it states that he worked in a grocery store, first job. Second job, it said he was a security officer, but it turns out he just drove the cart. So
yeah, moved old people from one place to another. Was awesome.
Drew is nationally known as a speaker on the subject of branding and the subject of social media. We really are blessed to have him here in our area. Like so many people that are well known around an area, outside of their area, they're probably better known outside the area sometimes than inside the area, and I think that's the case with Drew. So I'm going to turn it over to Drew for a couple opening remarks, and then we'll start taking questions.
Okay, well this is the free-for-all forum, so I'm going to just let you ask questions. I guarantee you someone will stump me, and I promise I will find out the answer and get back to you. But hopefully it won't be the first question right off the bat. So what questions do you have? We can talk about anything. Marketing, branding, internal marketing, what's happening inside your company, how you communicate to employees, how you talk to customers, how you prospect for new business, social media. I'm game for anything. So, yep.
We just got
wait for the mic.
I'm sorry. We just got the City of West Des Moines got a new tagline, Position Perfectly. And what's the best way to get that out so the people in West Des Moines know that we are positioned perfectly for the city?
Okay, so the question is, West Des Moines just gotten a new tagline, Positioned Perfectly, is that right? And the question is, how do you get that word out? Well, I think you start back further and you have a piece that clearly articulates what that means, right? So, and then you start using it everywhere, just like you did your old tagline. You start opening meetings. Here's one of the things people forget, and I always hearken this back to parenting. We believe that once we've told someone something once or twice, we are stunned that they don't remember it. And I remind you, for those of you who have children, how often you have had to repeat the same thing over and over before it sinks into their head. Well, the children are much more afraid of you than a prospect is or a customer, so they need even more information. So the rule of thumb is someone has to hear something between 8 and 13 times before they notice you're talking to them. So the biggest thing is just put it everywhere, repeat it often, open every city council meeting with as you all know, we started a new tagline, here's what it is, here's what it means. I think even getting some people, maybe there's a contest where West Des Moines citizens write and tell stories about what that means in their life after you articulate what it meant to the city. Because that's a tagline that a lot of people could infer a lot of different things. So it would be interesting to find out how a West Des Moines resident applies that to their own experience in the city. So you might even try some interactive things. That would be a great thing to put on your Facebook page and some things like that. Anything to get it virally out where other people are sharing it would be great. But also recognize that it's going to, I bet you money. How long did you have your old tagline?
We never had a tagline.
Okay, so I bet you money that if you stopped the average West Des Moines resident and said, what is the City of West Des Moines tagline? A bunch of them will make one up that they think it is, or B, they won't have any idea. So this is also probably a 2, 3, 4 year thing, not a 2, 3, 4 month thing. So give it some time. Okay? All right. Who else? I can always, all right. I was going to say, I can always turn to the,
In many small or startup phase businesses, sometimes the person almost comes at an equal footing with the company that they're presenting. So what do you create first, the personal brand or the company brand?
yeah, you know what? That's a really interesting question. So if you guys couldn't hear him, the question is, especially in the startup, but not always in the startup, oftentimes the owner or the founder rises to the sort of same prominence that the company does, and in what order do you do that, and what are some of the issues with it? And I'll give you a perfect example. It's my company. So I own an agency called McLellan Marketing Group, but most people, when they see me, they go, oh, Drew McLellan. And they don't always go, and he's got a whole agency of really smart, good people behind him, because my brand, my personal brand, sort of by accident, has eclipsed my company's brand. And we did some stupid things to make that worse. So for example, in 2006, when no one even knew what a blog was, I launched this little blog. And we already had this e-newsletter called the Marketing Minute, so we wanted to sort of keep them aligned and tell people it's sort of the same kind of content. So we decided to call the blog Drew's Marketing Minute. Well, guess what? When people think about that blog now, they don't think about McLellan Marketing Group, they think about Drew McLellan. So we wrestle with that issue all the time. So it can happen by accident, like it did with us, or it can happen by not being thoughtful. So I think the way to do that is to always launch the brand of the company first, and right behind it is the founder's brand. Because it's much easier to hold the brand out as it gets bigger, because the ideal goal, obviously, regardless of how big a company you're building, is that your company is better known than you are in place of the company. So if most people said, I need to hire a marketing agency, a lot of people, thank God, would say, oh, you should call Drew McLellan. But what they don't say is, oftentimes they don't say, you should call McLellan Marketing Group. So you want to avoid that issue that we have by building the brand first, because you always want that to be bigger than the founder, right? And letting the founder sort of push the brand, right? Yes?
Not necessarily so. I mean, so long as you're with a privately held corporation, I don't see an issue if you are the brand torchbearer, if you would.
Okay, so what he says, not necessarily so, depending on if you're privately held. Maybe it's okay for an owner to be the brand. Let me give you a couple examples. And again, very personal examples. Apparently we're opening the kimono today. So someone calls my company and they email me and they go, Drew, Mike Caldwell said that I should sit down and have coffee with you because we need an agency and I want to hire you. That is great. I'm going to be traveling 3/4 of September and most of October, but I really want you to sit down with one of my people. Yeah, no, I want you, Drew, right? So that's one of the problems. The other problem is I'm 50 years old. I don't want to do this forever. So I've built this asset, right? I want to sell it. Do you think I can get more money for it if it stands alone or if it's tied to me? Because if I sell it, I probably don't want to stay, right? That's the whole point of selling it. So I think in the short run, you're right. And it's easier to build a personal brand than it is a company brand. But in the long term, when you think about the growth of your company, in most cases, I think it is better to build the brand of the company and let the CEO, founder, rainmaker, whatever that position is, take a secondary role. Yeah. Other questions? Yes? When you are starting a new business, how important is a tagline? Like all marketing questions, the answer to that is, it depends. So here's some of the things it depends on. If the name of your business, Bob's Concrete Layers, tells me exactly what you do, tagline a little less important, right? Because a tagline and a brand should tell me how or why. Brands shouldn't tell me what you do. Brands should tell me how or why you do it and why you're different from everybody else who does what you do. But if I can at least see your name and I get what you are, then a tagline in the beginning is less important, because in the beginning you're just trying to find 3 customers so you can pay your mortgage so you can build to the next level. But if your name is something like Xerox, right? We now all know what that means, but when they started, we had no idea because it was a pretend word. So if your name is, and a lot of web companies today, we make up a lot of words. So if your name doesn't tell me exactly what you do, then your tagline by default has to be descriptive about what it is you offer. And then in the startup phase, it's vital because otherwise I have no idea if I can or should or would ever hire you because I don't know what you do. Ultimately, a brand becomes a huge difference in a small business. I think it's a bigger deal in a small business, and frankly, I think it's a bigger deal in a B2B business than it is in a big business or a B2C business. Because it's really the only way you differentiate yourself. It's the only way you sort of get the message out of there's 12 marketing agencies in Des Moines. Here's what we do that's a little different. Here's how we do it a little different. So eventually it becomes very important. In the beginning, it depends. Okay? And let me take one from the pile here. Oh, I shouldn't have taken this one. Okay. What is the next big thing in social media? And then they listed 3,000 things. Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, Foursquare, LinkedIn. There are so many avenues. What's next? I have no idea. And that's the reality. Anybody who tells you they know is lying. Because there are some trends that we know that are coming. So for example, one of the trends that is tied right to social media is mobile. Do you know that in 2013, more of us will access the internet by our phones than we do by computers sitting on our desk or in our backpack? So that's a game changer for all of us. And if you're not paying attention to mobile, and if you don't have a website that looks great on a smartphone, you better get to it in a hurry, okay? But in terms of social media specifically, Pinterest is very hot right now, but businesses are struggling to figure out, other than the SEO juice that it gives them, how to actually capture it and use it for business. Facebook is, of course, the giant in the room, but they continue to struggle. And with the IPO debacle and everything else, people are starting to say, well, maybe Facebook won't be around that long. And one of the reasons why is because they haven't figured out how to tie their mobile advertising well into their platform. And most of us today are accessing Facebook on our smartphones. So the revenue that they drive off of the desktop page is going to be challenged by the fact that we don't go by desktop anymore. Google Plus is sort of the dark horse because everyone goes, well, no one is there. But who is there? Google is there. And one of the reasons why any of us are active in social media is because of the search engine optimization value. And who do you suppose is going to get preferential treatment from Google in terms of SEO placement? Facebook, which they're not allowed to index, or Google Plus, which they happen to own, right? So if you start watching, you're going to start seeing a lot more Google Plus entries into that first page or two of Google. So if SEO is very important to you, you really can't ignore Google Plus, even though you think no one is paying attention to you. Because even if no one else is, Google is. Twitter continues to struggle. It's a very niche product. It's fascinating to me how 3 years ago, nobody was talking about it, and now you cannot turn on a television show. You can't see anything without the Twitter icon, the Facebook icon. It's really become just mainstream for us. So the question is, I think, twofold. One, at what point will we say too much, too much, too much? And what will we eliminate from the mix? Because right now, according to this person, and they're absolutely right, there's so many choices, we are going to start self-selecting down, right? And so the question is not what's new. I think the real question is, what are we going to decide is not valuable enough to invest our time in? And I think that for businesses, Pinterest may be one of the ones that's on the block, although right now it's the darling. So we'll see how that plays. A question from the audience? Yep, Christian?
Well, just to follow up on that, as a business, we feel compelled to be on all these social networks. But as a consumer of that, it's now become the fire hose, and I think we all experience that. What tips do you have for a business to make sure that the interactions they have are valuable and help stand out from that stream of nonsense.
Okay, so the question is, as businesses, we look at all these channels and think, I have to be there, I have to be there, I have to be there, I have to be there. But when we put on our consumer hat, it's like drinking from a fire hose and it's too much. And a lot of what businesses put out into the social media networks is not relevant to us. We don't care, we tune it out. So the question is, how do you make sure your content is valuable? And this will sound ridiculously simple, but pay attention and see how often it is ignored. If you write and you share content that is in the best interest of your audience, it's stuff they care about, not stuff you care about. It's not about your sale. It's not about anything that you sell. It's tangentially related to what you sell, but it is of value to them. That's what they care about. You know, the harsh reality is they don't care about us and our company and our product and our service. They care about their life and their world. And so what you have to figure out is, how do you share content that connects to that? So, you know, one of the great things that you see happening all the time in social media is when you stop talking at them and you ask a question and you actually are listening when they answer and then respond back. All of a sudden that becomes this great dialogue that you have to remember a couple thousand people or better are eavesdropping on. So it really is no different than, you know, we've talked about this I think here before, but it's sort of like going to a party and walking up to somebody and introducing yourself and saying, you know, hey Stan, I'm Drew McLellan. I want to spend the next 30 minutes telling you all about me, right? And Stan is going, oh my God, I have to make an excuse. I have to get away. I have to run. But if I walk up to Stan and I say, Stan, nice to meet you. I'm Drew McLellan. Tell me, what do you do? And we talk a little bit about that. And, oh, really? Okay. And I start asking questions. Stan leaves thinking that I am a fascinating conversationalist. Why? Because we talked about Stan, right? So if you can mimic that behavior, and the rule that we follow with clients and ourselves are that we will talk about ourselves about once every 10th time. So 9 or 10 times we want to offer something of value that is not related to buy something from me, or here's what we do for a living, right? And then the 10th time we might do that in a subtle way, and then we go right back to adding value. But that sounds ridiculously simple, but you pay attention to your own Twitter stream or Facebook or even LinkedIn, and you watch how often that's self-promotional stuff, and we will see why it feels like a fire hose that we want to turn off. Next question.
I may ask you. Drew, hi. I've got a startup company. It's in the bed and breakfast industry. In order to get a name for myself, I had to actually, because of SEO reasons, I had to get something bed and breakfast in it. But I find myself mired in literally hundreds and hundreds of other companies in this particular industry. How do I branch off? How do I break from the pack, as so to speak, branding myself as something of so that I can just move away from the bed and breakfast and then build a brand in this industry?
Okay, so the question is, have a startup. It's in the B&B industry. For SEO reasons, I had to get a URL and a name that had bed and breakfast in it, but now I'm sort of stuck in this big pool. I have absolutely no idea without asking you a few more questions. So give me an idea. Tell me a little more about the business.
Okay, I'm an aggregator of bed and breakfast owners throughout the world. I do global marketing for them.
Okay, so you do marketing for B&B owners. So your audience is not people who want to go to a B&B, but it's the B&B operators. Okay, okay. And you're offering them
Marketing as far as booking engine and reservations and
okay.
trip planning and things like that.
Okay, so one of the things that often happens with all marketing, but certainly with stuff that happens online, is pretty much the entire world is your audience. And frankly, for most of us, we have no desire to talk to the entire world. And in fact, the entire world has no desire to talk to us, right? So it's really about slicing the apple as thin as you can. So how do you get to, so what you need to worry about is, where do B&B operators hang out? Where do they talk? Not just online, but in physical space. Sometimes I think we forget that we can market offline, right? I mean, we could actually go to a trade show, for example. We can actually buy a print ad. That is not a dead industry depending on what you're doing. So I think the trick is probably in the online world you're going to live a little bit in that space for a while. One of the ways to break loose is to create content that is specifically aimed at B&B operators. So if I land on your website as a potential B&B stayer, I am going to go, oh, not for me. And the more content you can create that is aimed at the operator, the more the search engines will sort you out. But part of that is also, probably in the beginning, getting offline and going and hanging out where they hang out. So, if you were going to go on a photo safari and you wanted to shoot a photograph of a rhino, you would go hang out where rhinos hang out, so you would have the likelihood of finding them. And in marketing, it's the same thing. You sort of have to figure out where their watering hole is, and you need to actually get off your butt and go there and hang out with them and have conversations with them, and then invite them back to where you live online and make that connection. But oftentimes, online connections need to start offline. So the big thing for you in terms of SEO and online, though, is content that, using phrases like, as a bed and breakfast operator, when you welcome the guest to your bed and breakfast, thinking about phrases that only an operator would use or would find valuable, because odds are if they're searching for you, they are looking for something a little more specific. Most of us don't go to Google and just put one word in anymore. Most often, we put in some sort of a phrase. We phrase our search in the form of either a question or a statement. So you need to put that kind of content on. So, go to one of the tools at Google that shows you what phrases are searched most often and create content around those phrases to draw more people to you that are actually your potential customer.
And this goes well with the thing which Tej had asked you earlier about the person. When one of the things I decided to put my last name, Sinha, along with this particular word, and now in Google, the moment this name comes up, I'm the first top 10 over there. So
Right.
it's advisable to put my name along with this business and create a brand based on my name, and eventually, after 5 years, then transition into what we talked earlier.
Yeah, so his question is, in the URL, he also put his last name. And so now, if you actually search for that, obviously, it comes up because it's a unique combination, a last name and an industry, right? So in the short run, yep, that probably works. But remember that most people who find us on the web, for example, don't put McLellan Marketing Group in the search, because if they did that, they could just call us, right? They put Des Moines Advertising Agency or Iowa Marketing Firm or something like that. So it's great to show up well when your name is in the search, but remember, if they haven't heard of you, that's not how they're going to search, okay? Another question. At some point, it may sound like I'm hacking up a lung because I have a little bit of walking pneumonia left, but I'm fine. And I am not contagious. Yes?
Yeah, Drew, best uses of LinkedIn. What would be your maybe top 2 or 3 besides typically what you see is people connecting with people, but it gets a little tiring. So what would you recommend to say this is the best use of it?
So the question is best use of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is probably one of the social media tools that is underutilized more than most. And I think it's because it's not very sexy. You can't put pictures of your kids. You can't, it's just not as interactive. It feels like a big old Rolodex. The beautiful thing about it are a couple things. One, I think one of the places where it is often not used well is the question and answer area. So one of the places where you can build great SEO and you can demonstrate your expertise is to every once in a while scan the Q&A section for questions that are related to your industry and answer them. Now this assumes a couple things. One, you know what you're talking about. 2, you can write without typos, right? So you're putting yourself out there. You have to have some basics in terms of how you're going to do that, but that's one of the places. Groups are another great way to interact with a potential customer base or peers. And honestly, another great thing that is working very well for a lot of people, especially on the B2B side, are LinkedIn ads. But they're very tricky. They have to be very specific. So there's a lot of testing that goes back and forth with those. So we have some clients where that's working great, and we have other clients where that's not working So the more narrow your niche and the more targeted your audience, the better. And honestly, sometimes it's just as simple as doing a search and reaching out to people, connecting one-on-one. I mean, we pretty much tell everybody everything all about us professionally in LinkedIn. So, if all of a sudden you want to talk to a certain group of people, you can certainly hunt down people that way. It's just time consuming. Okay? All right, let me go to another question because I want to make sure we get to these. What are the reasons or thoughts for choosing a new tagline for your company if your current one is recognizable? Can it be done successfully to reach a new market? Okay. Couple things. One, keep in mind that about the time that you're so sick of your tagline that you want to cry every time you see it, your consumer group is probably just starting to recognize it, right? So that you think it's old and tired does not mean it's old and tired. You own the joint or you run the joint, so you are the worst person in terms of objectivity about that tagline. Number two, a lot of times, if there's a lot of equity in a tagline, even if it's a crappy tagline, you should leave it alone. Because unless your company has changed so much that you don't do anything like what you used to do and the tagline is absolutely incorrect. If I walked up to people and I say, Timex takes a licking and, right, the last time Timex used that was in the late 70s. They have had several since. Anybody know what Timex's tagline is now? Okay. Huh? I think it's the time of your life, I think is what it is now. But the point is, they had a $1 million tagline. I'm sure the people at Timex were so sick of it they could cry. But now we, and some of you are too young to have ever actually seen a commercial where Timex used that, and you still know it. So what happened in that case was they got a new chief marketing officer, wanted to put their mark on the company, and so they rebranded, right? So I don't know what the specifics are about this, but I would say wade into these waters very carefully and do not let your opinion be the deciding opinion. Get some outside expertise. Even if you only buy a couple hours of someone's time, get some outside expertise because you cannot see this objectively. And odds are it will cost you as much, if not more, to start over than it would to just keep doing what you're doing. All right? Another question from the floor? Yep.
So talk just a little bit about video, like YouTube. Do many people actually open up and watch a YouTube video if it's mailed to them?
Okay, the question is, talk a little bit about video. Do people actually open up videos and watch them? So a couple things about video. One, and this is true about anything that happens online, this sounds somehow shady, but it's just the reality. There are two reasons why you do anything online. One is for the audience, and the second one is for SEO. That's the reality. The number 2 search engine in the world is YouTube. It's owned by the number 1 search engine in the world, Google. So again, do you think it gets preferential treatment in search engine results? You bet it does. So even if no one ever watches your video, you probably should have some. Will they open it up? The real question is, does it suck? Because if it sucks, they're not going to open it up. If it looks boring, if it's just a talking head, or they'll open it up and they'll watch about 1.5 seconds and go, oh, no. But if you have sent, or is it valuable to me? Does it teach me how to do something? Does it help me be better, faster, smarter? Then, okay, I'll watch it. Oh, and by the way, you have about a 2 or 3 minute window, and then I'm done. I don't care how fascinating it is, right? So the 7-minute video, the 10-minute video, break it up into pieces. Nothing wrong with having the whole thing because you're going to show that when you give presentations or you're going to put it on your website. But in terms of YouTube, chunk that up into pieces, into chapters, if you will. So yes, people will watch videos if they are of value to them. If I think you're just promoting and selling to me, then I'm not gonna open that and watch it any more than I'm gonna open the direct mail piece you sent to me, or I'm gonna pay attention to what you put on Facebook, because you're not talking to me about me, you're talking to me about you, and we talked earlier, I don't care about you, right? Even if I'm your customer, the reality is, if you're not telling me something of value to me, even if I like you as a person, even if we hang out together and we go to ball games and we go out for a scotch now and then, if it's too much about you all the time, for no other reason than there's 24 hours in a day and I have 27 hours worth of work, and oh yeah, I have a family, and oh yeah, I have other stuff I want to do, people just have to filter out because of time. So yes, they'll open it, keep it short, keep it visually interesting, it is video. So again, a talking head for 2 minutes, painful beyond belief, right? I don't care how pretty the head is. And make it be clear in your email to me why I want to watch it. So don't just send me a video. Say, Drew, if you give us 1 minute and 53 seconds, you are going to make $300,000 in the next week, whatever the promise is. Don't make that promise, by the way, but you know what I'm saying. So tell me why I want to watch it, but without a doubt, from an SEO perspective, you should be using video. Yep.
I just want to follow up on the thing about the video in YouTube. What's the best way then to link that to the website? Should it be actually that you post on YouTube first and then onto the website?
Great question. So the question is, if you're going to make a video, what's the best way to add it to your website? The best way is to let it live on YouTube, right? So you've got your YouTube channel where all your videos live, and then you're going to embed it into your, so don't give me a link and then I have to go to YouTube to find it. Embed it so I can click the play button and watch it, but it lives on YouTube because now you're getting both the traffic from your website and from YouTube, okay?
I guess a question about print media and how relevant it is nowadays. We get hit up constantly from different magazines, other publications saying, hey, put an ad in there, and it just seems really, really expensive and really question the viability of it and the worthwhileness of it.
Yeah, so the question is about print media in particular, magazines and newspapers. How relevant are they? They're expensive. The reality is, again, the overall marketing answer, it depends, right? So it depends on who your audience is. It depends on the publication. It is difficult to sell and justify advertising in a mainstream, broad publication that is not niched in any way today. Why? Because no one is talking to everyone anymore. So one of the challenges is to ask yourself is, how targeted is this magazine in terms of my audience? So for example, if you sell a certain kind of bridle or saddle, and it's a magazine that only goes to people who own horses, that may be a very good buy, especially when you combine it with yeah, I will sign a contract and I will buy a series of ads, but I would also like an editorial story about my business. Oh, Mr. McLellan, we're so sorry, advertising and editorial never cross paths. Liar. Okay, here's what I would like to buy, right? So if the publication is very targeted and it goes exactly to who you want to talk to, it's a fine choice. If it is something like the Des Moines Register, which is very broad but has sections, then you have to be smarter about where you put your ad in that section, right? In the right section. And in most cases, the magazines have online alternatives which they can package with the print. So first of all, media, there's never been a better time to negotiate to buy media than it is right now, because they're all scrambling, I don't care if it's broadcast or print, to fill their stock of ads. Because everybody, of course, thinks that Facebook is the holy grail, and that's where we're spending all of our time, is online. So it is a great time to negotiate a great buy in print. If you can target it to the right people, it is still a very viable option. You just have to be really smart about the buy, and you have to be really smart about negotiating and get a lot of value add, and one of the value adds should be their online equivalent. But it is not dead yet. How many of you read at least one print magazine a month? Anybody? Yeah, almost everybody in the room. So it's not dead yet. I think they are reinventing themselves, without a doubt. I think both newspapers and magazines are doing that. But I don't think the industry is dead, nor do I think it's a bad choice, depending on what it is you sell. So, it can be a really great choice in the B2B space, because again, those are usually, steel manufacturer magazine, pretty targeted audience. So if it's the right audience for you, it's a good buy. All right, let me get to what are the top 3 to 5 marketing initiatives you would recommend to a nonprofit organization? Well, first I would tell the nonprofit 3 to 5 may be a little aggressive. One of the basic marketing mistakes that everybody makes is we try and do everything. I think it was, to Christian's point earlier, we look at all these social media channels and we think we have to be on them all. You cannot, whether you're a for-profit or not-for-profit, you cannot do it all. You are far better to do fewer things and do them better and more often than you are to spread yourself out over everything. So for the generic nonprofit, the first thing I would do is I would step up how often I talk to people who have given us money or their time in the past. One of the other marketing mistakes we all make typically is we are always after the new customer or the new donor or the new volunteer. And we forget how valuable our existing customers or donors or volunteers are. And we forget how much easier and cheaper it is to get them to buy again as opposed to getting to someone to buy for the first time. So the first thing I would do is I would look at my donor base, my volunteer base, my supporters, my cheerleaders, and I would figure out how to connect them in a tighter, more emotional way to my cause, and how I would communicate to them more clearly and directly and often how they can help me. So a lot of nonprofits make the mistake of saying, here I'm going to hold up the sick puppy, don't you want to help? But they don't say, we need blankets. Animal Rescue League is brilliant at this. If you want to watch a nonprofit market very well, they go, we need blankets, we need canned dog food, and we need $25. Can you give us any of that? So I now know exactly what they need. So I would be very specific and I would talk to them more often. That would be tactic number 1. Tactic number 2 is I would become an incredible storyteller. Charities in the 80s and 90s were great at this, and as businesses started getting more persnickety about asking for facts and outcomes and all of that data, charities all of a sudden became numbers machines. And I'm not saying you don't want to share that information, because you do, but at the end of the day, I as a business owner, I'm going to give money to the charity that makes me cry a little, right? That I feel connected to emotionally. So you have to be a great storyteller. So every time you tell me a fact, tell me a story that makes that fact real to me. Every time you tell me a statistic, show me a picture of someone that statistic represents. So put a face and a story to everything and everything you do. So if I go to your webpage, I should be overwhelmed with stories of the people that you help or the animals you help or the environment that you help. Doesn't matter what it is, but you need to make me feel why your charity matters. Number 3, I think you look at what you're already doing and you figure out how to do it better. So charities are notorious for doing things on their own on Publisher, which is really an evil, evil piece of software. So you need to look at what you're doing, and before you do anything new, you need to notch up the quality of what you're already doing, because odds are some of the other charities in town, some of the bigger charities in town, are kicking your butt. And if you want to compete with them, which you have to do for dollars, you need to be able to play at that level. And if you can do all of that and you still have time, then I would say I would look at the audience that you want to attract the most. So do you have a bunch of people in their 40s and 50s, but you haven't really appealed to the 20s and 30-year-olds? Or do the 20 and 30-year-olds love you, but it's hard to hang on to them as they get into their 40s and 50s? I would figure out what audience you have the biggest disconnect with that you think you could have a better connection with, and decide what medium, where their watering hole is, and create a marketing tactic that ties to that watering hole. Okay? Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I also work for a nonprofit. Social media is a big part of what we do.
No doubt.
Facebook specifically, we've
Yep.
got a large following. On our page, you now have to pay to promote.
If you want to promote.
the number of people we're reaching has decreased since this new initiative. How do you see that impacting people? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the time? We're very conscious of where every single dollar goes. So.
Sure. So Facebook just launched this new thing where on your Facebook page, you can pay a nominal fee to promote your page, which means they push it out to more people. I'm not sure it's a great idea for-profit companies, because if I share something that feels like, oh, McLellan Marketing Group just shared this great tip and aren't they helpful? Oh, look, they paid to push this in my news feed. That tastes a little yucky, right? And the charity, of course, has the challenge of, if you can afford to pay to push that stuff in my news feed, then you don't need my money, right? So I would tread into that very slowly. I think the better way to get more people to see your stuff is to improve the quality of your stuff. So post more often, post things that get people to interact, ask more questions, do more polls, talk more about what they care about, to get more people interacting, because that's actually how Facebook decides how many people are going to see your stuff. Is, are people interacting with you? The more people that interact with you, the more people that see it. So I'd up it that way. If you decide you're going to do the sponsored push, then I would get someone to pay for that. And on your Facebook page, I would say, all of our sponsored posts are due to the graciousness and generosity of Bob Smith and his company, right? So I would do something to tell the consumer, hey, we're not taking the money you're donating and spending it on Facebook promotions. Okay? I want to get to another question. What is the best way, of course this is going to be a depends question, what is the best way to help a business see the value in a marketing consultant? I think I would know the answer to that question. The best way is to have clients that talk about you and that will tell your story and that will give testimonials. Businesses, as a general rule in terms of their marketing, do a lousy job of getting testimonials and using them to their advantage. So again, in my case, if somebody is going to hire us as an agency, if someone else says, you should go talk to McLellan Marketing Group or you should go talk to Drew McLellan, odds are we're the only ones they're talking to, and it's sort of a done deal unless we stub our toe. If we have to answer an RFP or we have to go out and try and generate that new business opportunity, odds are we're competing with our peers. So just in terms of making it easier, the more our customers can rave about us, which gets back to my other marketing point, which is don't ignore your own customers. So make sure your customers feel loved and valued and special. So we do this thing, all of you probably get some sort of communication from McLellan Marketing Group at some point in time. You either see the blog, or you see the column in the Business Record, or you get our e-newsletter. And I got worried that our clients were going to go, God, you give everything away for free. What value is it to actually be your client? So we created this thing called the MMG Insider. And it's a monthly email where we send a little tidbit or a, boy, you should be watching about this, or hey, here's a trend that's on the horizon, that we send out every month, and the only people who get it are our clients. And I make a point of saying to them every month, you are the only people that get this, and I want you to know we're doing it because we appreciate your business and we know how valuable you are to us. And so we want to give you this little secret piece of tidbit of information that we're not sharing anywhere else. I get a ton of messages back. We send it by email. And there's nothing pretty about it. It's not HTML. It's just an email from us to them. And I get a ton of emails back saying, thanks for the information. So glad you do this. Appreciate that you thought about us. Even clients that we don't talk to every day. So my one tip is take really good care of the clients that you have because they're your best advertising. Number two, the best way to help them see it is to be able to demonstrate results. So to be able to say, client A came to us with this problem. Here are the 4 things we did to solve it, and here are the results. So to be able to, because the bottom line, when somebody hesitates hiring you, what they're really saying is, I'm not confident that things are going to be better 60 days from now than they are right now. And I know I'll be out $5,000, but I want to make sure I'm getting my money's worth for that. So talking about results, there are some marketing consultants who guarantee their results, depending on how much of the situation they can control. That's a slippery slope for anybody. You don't have to be a marketing consultant to do that. But we also do a lot of what we call first date or first dance kind of projects. So we'll say, well, you know what? Let's try this project together, see how that goes. And by the time we're done with that, we're going to sort of know if we're good dance partners. We're going to know, because it's not just about results, it's also about chemistry. It's also about, can they get a hold of you? You know, if I get a text from a client at 7 o'clock at night, I have a conscious choice to make. Do I answer them or do I wait till business hours, right? So all of that first dance or that first date allows them to see what it's like to work with you. And then again, that's not a marketing consultant thing. And by the way, I answer their text.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. It's not just about results, it is also about chemistry, but giving them a sample, it's no different than if you go to Costco or the grocery store, and on Saturdays, you know, you can pretty much have lunch by the time you're through the store, and they know that if you will try the piece of hot dog or the cheese or the whatever, you're more likely to buy it. So think about your own services that way. Is there a way you can give an hors d'oeuvre sample of working with you, give them a little snack, a taste, and then they can decide if they want to buy more. One thing that I believe wholeheartedly is there's no reason to drag that horse to the water kicking and screaming. I've never believed in the hard sell. If somebody's ready to hire you, they will hire you. And they will hire you in their own time frame. It's not always the time frame we want, right? But you cannot force somebody to need or want you. You have to offer enough value that they'll come when they're ready. So part of that is also offering value before they know that they need it. So one thing I don't have to do for our company is I don't have to convince anyone that we understand marketing. Why? Because we're out and about talking about it ad nauseum everywhere. I'm sure to the point that people go, oh my God, Drew McLellan again? But that's our role, is to be out there, because I have no idea if one of you is this close to hiring an agency. And I have no idea if 3 years from now, one of you will be ready to hire an agency and you'll remember that we had this conversation and go, okay, of the 3 agencies we're going to talk to, I want to make sure one of them is McLellan Marketing Group. So part of it is being out there and being intentional all the time, knowing that you never know when somebody's going to be ready to pull the trigger.
Drew, we have about 10 minutes.
Okay, what are we seeing as the best and worst web videos on main pages? One, we're not seeing a lot of web or videos yet on main pages. Most web pages are sort of still stuck in the 90s. It's all text. It's not interactive. You know, it looks horrible on a smartphone. So we have not advanced to the point where everybody has really sophisticated web pages. Most videos are too long and they're boring. So, and it's not even about production quality, because YouTube has trained us to not really care as much about production quality. Yes, we love animation and we love stuff that's really well produced, but we're very tolerant of sort of the Menards level of video, right? And I don't mean that as a bad thing about Menards. You know, Menards is my example of marketing doesn't always have to be really creative or good to work, because if I started the Menards jingle, you would all finish it in your head, right? It's not that it's good. It's not that the guy in the blue jeans or the overalls was a great actor. It was that we saw it all the time, and frequency works. So it's not about always quality in terms of video. It is about usefulness, interest. Is it valuable? Is it funny? Not funny just to be funny because you've just wasted 2 minutes of my time, but is there a reason that I got something out of watching it? And most videos, the reality is, I'm on the screen, I'm talking to you about me, telling you all about me, and then I'm going to say, enough about me, what do you think about me? And then that's why people don't pay attention to the video. Okay, so I've gotten through all of these. Looks like we have about 5 or 8 minutes. Yep.
You've talked about consistency, patience, not making changes too frequently. But at what point do you consider abandoning or changing course with something you've invested marketing down?
Yeah, it depends. If I was a lot younger, I would brand myself as the depends guy, but now I'm getting to the age where I don't really want to do that. I think when you start something new, you have to give yourself a window. And so you have to say, I'm going to do this for 6 months, or I'm going to do this for a year, or I'm going to do this for 3 months. And it really kind of depends on the tactic. And then I'm going to, for the first time, begin to question whether or not it's working. But I guarantee you, 99 times out of 100, you're pulling the plug too soon, not waiting too long. So again, you're probably not objective enough to make the decision by yourself. So whether you're a startup and you have an advisory board of friends and family, or you have an agency relationship, or you have a marketing director outside of your company that can give you some outside perspective, don't make it just yourself. But I would really caution you against thinking, yep, that's enough. So I would say whatever you think the time frame is, it's probably double it. That might be a decent rule of thumb. Now, that also means that when you make that decision to start it, you have to know that you have the resources to let it go. So one of the things that happens is it hasn't taken hold yet, and I'm running out of money. Or I've dumped $10,000 down this. You have to make those decisions going in, knowing I'm going to commit to this. Now, that doesn't mean if you do something for a month or two, and especially if it's online where you can really see in black and white what the results are, that you don't tweak and you don't make adjustments. But if you're going to be in some, all marketing takes longer to take hold than we think it does. All of it does. Marketing is a marathon, not a sprint. And so if you cannot commit the resources, time, money, staff time, whatever it is, to do it for the prescribed time that you think is about right, then you're better off to put the money back in your pocket and not do it at all.
Drew, could you follow that up and talk about marketing plans, please?
Oh, yeah. How many of you have a marketing plan that you look at least once a week? Okay, so those of you, which was most of you, which is always most of you, in every group, if you don't have something that says on Mondays we do this, on Tuesdays we do this, once a month we do that, it can really be as simple as a page of paper or two that just outlines, here's what we do every week, every month, every quarter, whatever it is. You need to have one of those. The odds of you actually executing all of those things goes up to about 95% if you have a written document. Now, if you're a startup and you're still trying a lot of things, and you're trying to figure it out, maybe it's written in pencil and maybe it gets changed a lot, but at least have a document that in your Tuesday morning meeting or whatever meeting where you come together either with your team or with your advisors or whoever it is, you have a document that at least says, on Thursday we're supposed to do this. Are we going to do that? Yes or no? Where you're making a conscious decision to either honor the plan or violate the plan. The biggest mistake most marketing people make is that they do not have any idea. If you said to them, what are you going to do marketing-wise in a quarter? Yeah, I don't know. You've got to know, because otherwise, here's the reality of marketing. Marketing will never be on fire the way, your own marketing will never be on fire the way a client's problems are and all the other stuff you deal with every day. And literally, if you think about the way we actually work, we run from fire to fire to fire to fire all day long. No one goes to work at 8 a.m. and goes, I know exactly how today is going to be, and today actually works out that way, right? So if marketing is not built into your calendar, built into your day plan, however you sort of schedule your time and resources, something on fire will always distract you from getting it done. And we're the worst about our own stuff.
What's the one question that you wanted to be asked that you weren't, and what's the answer?
What is the one question I wanted to be asked that I was not, and what is the answer? Drew, can we hire you tomorrow? I have a bunch of money in my pocket. And the answer, of course, would be depends. So, because we're fortunate we get to be choosy about our clients. So, in most cases it would be yes, but it might be a depends. Yes?
How much money would you spend on marketing materials like a folder with a bunch of magazines? We have a lot of realtors that ask for Clyde to come speak to them, and they always get the folder, the 3-way folder with all this information, city demographics and things like that. And I have a feeling that when they walk out the door, it probably was in the trash.
So the question is, how much money would you spend on marketing materials? And then there was some clarification that Clyde gets asked to speak all the time, and he takes a beautiful folder with all this collateral stuff in it, and then odds are it's tossed somewhere, or it's still in someone's car probably, right, after the speech. My answer would be I would spend as little as possible in printed material. So I speak all over the country all the time. I don't have a printed brochure, I have nothing. What I do is I have a URL that I give the group, and everything I've done, whether it's my PowerPoint or it's handouts we did, are all online for them to download, because A, they can reuse it that way, so it's more valuable for them, right? So if I say to people, here, I'm going to give you a brochure, they're not going to call their staff together and gather around my brochure and say, here are the 4 points that Drew made, right? But if they can download my PowerPoint, they might, in a staff meeting, walk people through this stuff.
Would it be good to put it on, like, say, a flash drive that we can get for $3?
Sure, that would be another way to do it, is to distribute flash jobs. A lot of people are doing that. Unless there's a reason that it has to be printed, like a big directory or something like that, really more and more people are going away from, it used to be we printed it so no one could steal it and copy it, and our attitude is very different now. Our attitude is, of course you can steal my stuff, of course you can copy my stuff. I'm here to share with you, that's what I do. Why? Because I'm giving you an hors d'oeuvre sample of what it's like to do business with us, and I hope sooner or later you'll come back and buy from us. So I would print as little as you have to. And I would stick it all online, and then if I want it, I can go online and get it. If I don't want it, it's not sitting in the back of my car for 3 days.
Or if we do a flash drive.
Or put it on a jump drive. Sure.
And then at least they keep that.
Yep. Okay, it's 1, so I want to be respectful of your time. I will wrap up. I will also stick around for a while, so if you had a question either you didn't want to ask in front of anyone else, or you just thought of it, I will be around for a little bit. So thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.